Alright you guys, how's it going? So today we're going to do the first little maintenance video on the Lincoln here, the new car, and today's going to be transmission. I've already changed the oil on this car, but I wanted to do it off camera just to get a good feel for it. So the next time it comes time for an oil change, we'll show you guys how to change the oil. So primarily, obviously, the main viewers on this channel aren't going to be like super into this because this is not a Ford Ranger. So, but in case anybody has a Lincoln, or hey, if you are a subscriber and you just want to see how to do this, thanks for watching, I guess. So, yeah. So, backstory: bought this from CarMax, and their procedure is to go through this car, replace all the fluids and everything, which I applaud them for, but I just wish they would have used the correct fluid, and that was one of my, they asked me for my feedback survey, and that's the thing that I mentioned is, hey, please use the right filters and fluids, because this car is still under warranty, and still got 70,000 on the fucking powertrain, so I'm going to put the correct fluid back in it. So they put some generic Mercon in there, but I flushed it once already, and so now there's a mix of Mercon plus whatever they put in there before. So now I've got 6 quarts in the back of my truck, and I've got 6 quarts over there of Motorcraft Mercon LV, which is what the transmission calls for. So as you can see, I've got her up on ramps. She barely fits from the front skirt here, or from the front lip of the bumper, but she fits nonetheless. And you can get these little ramps at Harbor Freight for pretty cheap, and so these things are tough, you know, they can hold 5,000 pounds a piece, and so this car weighs 5,000 pounds, but it's spread over 2 wheels. So obviously make sure you're safe. Oh, excuse me, Jesus. Obviously make sure the vehicle's in park. I've got the emergency brake on, and I've got the rear wheel chucked, so it's not going anywhere. But yeah, always make sure you're safe first before you crawl up underneath this, because you're underneath this and this thing goes, you're not gonna make it. So, but we're gonna come out looking different. So, but it's actually pretty easy to do the transmission in this. Just one bolt, literally, after you take the shield off. But interesting quirk, I mentioned it in the unveiling video of this car. There is no way to service the filter here in my garage, my little rinky-dink garage. You have to, in order to, it's a transmission lifetime filter. So the filter is as good as the life of the transmission before it needs to be rebuilt. So I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit skeptical on that at first. I was like, but at the same time, it's like, hey, it makes servicing a little bit easier. So, and but anyway, I'm gonna quit rambling, and we're gonna go up underneath the car, take the shield off, and then drain it. So I'm gonna flush this 2 or 3 times today. That way I know everything is out, and then I just get nothing but Mercon in there. And then I'll show you guys a little trick to reset your shifting, and because in this car's instance, it's shifting a little bit harsh, especially under light loads. Under heavy loads, it shifts fine, but under light loads, it's kind of quirky. So I'm going to show you guys a trick to restore. Once the proper fluid's in there, I'll show you guys a trick to restore the shift quality and how it's supposed to be shifted. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop underneath the car. Alright, so I lied, we're not hopping underneath the car yet. So as you can see, I've got the hood popped here, and we need to take the air filter housing out of the car to be able to access the transmission fill and dipstick. So we just have a couple things to do. So right here is your mass airflow sensor, and so you need to, there's a little red tang in there that you have to pull out, and then once you do, just give it a pull and it pops right out. And then 2 8mm bolts right here, and then just the hose clamp here, separate it and pull up, and then right underneath is where the transmission fill is. So let's go ahead and pop those out. There's my nice little handy dandy little mini driver. There's your 2 bolts. And then the hose clamp. So now we can separate this guy. then you just simply, it's held in by grommets after this, so you just pull up like that, and then this entire snorkel is going to pop up. Just like that. And so there's your entire air cleaner housing. And if you look right down in here, there is your transmission fill. So it's one of these where it's the integrated cap and dipstick. So just like that. So yep, that's how we're actually going to fill the transmission. So I can't stress enough though, when you go to start it up, you can reach your arm underneath here, but for the purposes of video, like for the purposes of recording this video, I wanted to have easier access so you guys can see what's going on here. You can fish your arm down in there, but I want to be able to use my funnel and everything else, and so when I drain this, I'm going to be using an empty 1-quart oil jug to measure how much comes out, because I'm not going to get all 11 quarts that this thing holds out. I'm going to get about 5 to 5.5 quarts out, maybe 6. So I'm going to measure how much comes out, replace that much, and then continue and flush and flush and flush until I have no more fluid. So yeah, so now we can go underneath the car. Alright, so now we're underneath the car, and we just got to take this shield off here, which is this guy right there. And so it's just held in with little 4 quick release fasteners. Pretty easy to take off. They hold in there pretty good, but you can actually take them out by hand. So just these guys, they just unscrew and pop out. Just like that. And so you've got one on each corner in the front. Like that, and then you've got 2 more back here, recessed in these little holes. Now she's starting to drop on me, but and 1 more. Okay, and so then you just have to slide it out of this little clip right here, or it just falls out, one of the two. So we'll push that back, just like that. So now we can get up underneath here. Get my light in here so you guys can see. And so right here is your transmission drain bolt, right there. So you have 2, but don't get them mixed up because you're not going to get all the fluid out if you use this upper one. So you want to use that lower one right there. And if you are in here to change your oil, which like I said, I'll do it later, but on another video, but there's your oil filter, and conveniently there is your drain plug. So very easy to service stuff in here. And so now we're going to go ahead and get our pan in here and take off that little bolt, and that's it. So alright, let's go ahead and get to work. Alright, so we got everything we need underneath the car here. And you just need an 11mm socket with a nice little 1/4 inch, and that's all you need to take it off, because it's not really in there very tight. I think it's like 90 inch-pounds or something. So once we tighten it down, I'll give you guys a torque spec on that. So like I said, I do have an empty just 1-quart oil container to measure how much comes out, so there's no guesswork, because I know from the last time I serviced it, it's at the perfect level, right where it needs to be, so that way I'm not sitting here confused and going, so, but okay. Let's go ahead and get our stuff situated here. Come on, there we go. Here's my little oil container. I'm gonna get off this creeper because it's probably making too much noise. Okay. And very carefully get in here and try not to drop the bolt in the fucking bottle. So So that's 1 quart down. And then just a note with this stuff too, at least if you use the Motorcraft, it's very normal at about 30,000, which is when the manual says to actually flush this. You have to flush this a lot more than just a standard automatic with a filter, just to help protect and prolong the life. But Mercon LV breaks down extremely fast. At 30,000, it's going to look brown and disgusting, but that's normal. So we've got 1 quart down so far. And I'm trying to cock the bottle so I can get because this thing has a little oil sight indicator, so. Now we're coming down to kind of a dribble here, just under 7 quarts. Now granted, are you going to get all this fluid out with the car at an angle like this? No, but that's why I'm doing this 2 or 3 times today. For all intents and purposes, we'll call that 7 quarts. We've only got 4 quarts of fluid left in there, kind of suspended in the trans, and so that's not too bad. But I'm going to come back really quick. I'm going to wipe my hands off so I can turn my camera off. And I'm just going to let this thing drip, drip, drip away. So really quick too, while we're letting this transmission drain, I just wanted to show you guys something that you guys, for any vehicle, it doesn't really matter, but something that I think everybody should take advantage of, which is all data. And so I used to use all data at the auto shop that I used to work at, but this is all data DIY right here on my phone. And so it's pretty affordable. I got a 5-year subscription for this car and a 5-year subscription for my Ranger for 80 bucks. So, and this thing has basically repair. This is a gigantic repair manual. So it has procedures, how long it should take, torque specs, which is the big thing I was after. And so as you can see here, it's got everything. And so if we come down here, I know this is at an awkward angle for me. So, but if we come down here, transmission and drivetrain, I know you guys probably can't see that, but so we'll click that, come down, and you have all this other stuff right here. So automatic transmission and transaxle, and I'm just pulling out the torque spec for you guys for that drain bolt. So we'll just say fluid pan, so since I already know how to do the fluid. So you can go to specifications, and it gives you the torque value. I'm not replacing the pan, but if you were, it gives you exactly how you're supposed to do it, and then also 106 inch-pounds for it right there. So, but like I said, we're not taking that off. So we'll go to service and repair, and right here it says with the vehicle in neutral or park, position on a hoist, on all that stuff, and then remove the air cleaner housing and assembly, which we already did, and then it says drain the transmission fluid, which is what we already did. Which you can see the bolt right there in the picture, and tighten right there to 9 Newton meters or 80 inch-pounds. So that's what the drain bolt's going to get torqued to, is 80 inch-pounds. So like I said, I would highly suggest this for anybody that likes to work on their own vehicles and save yourself a lot of money, because it gives you all the pictures, diagrams, and highlights all the specific parts that you're going to be using. So now I can go ahead and take my 1/4 inch torque wrench and go ahead and set that to 80 inch-pounds and go back underneath here and tighten the plug to exactly what it's supposed to be. So we're going to go ahead and do that next because it's done draining. Alright, back up underneath the car here, and so I've got my handy dandy little drain plug here. We're going to go ahead and thread her back up in here just by hand. You don't want to cross thread this because this is aluminum, so I'm going to run it all the way down by hand, which is right there. And then I'm going to take my ratchet and start tightening it, but not too tight because I don't want to over torque it. So right about there, it's starting to get a little snug. So I'm going to pop this off, and I've already got my torque wrench set to 80 inch-pounds. Anybody who knows anything about this channel knows that I am like a torque Nazi. So every single fastener on this car has a torque value. So nice and slow. You just want to go till it clicks. Right there. Sorry, I bumped you guys. Oops. There we go, that's better. I'm going to be able to show you what we're doing, right? So now she's torqued. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this down so I'm not getting any smoke or anything when I start up. So, and then when we do that, I'm not going to put the shield back on because I'm going to be doing this exact same thing in about 30 minutes after I drive it for a little bit and just let it run. And then as soon as that's done, I'm not going to show you doing this over and over and over again because you guys get the gist and I don't want to be boring here as if I'm not already. So yeah, so I'm going to wipe this down and then we're going to go up top and start filling it back up. Okay, so now we're up underneath the hood. This is my little shop light so we can see what's going on here. And so right here I already have I popped this off after we did the initial draining so that more air could come through. So we're going to take this and just set this off to the side. And we drained about 7 quarts, so I got my funnel here. Nice deep funnel. And I'm going to go ahead and start grabbing my my ATF. Start pouring. And so again, this transmission calls from Mercon LV. I strongly advise using the Motorcraft because they have, I mean, I don't care what your opinion is and everything else, you know, you do you put whatever you want in your car, but if it's my car, I'm using what the factory says because it's what they designed the vehicle to run on. So yeah, you may be saving $2 or $3 a quart, you know, because I mean this stuff is only $5 a quart, and in my mind an extra $20 is worth not having a transmission rebuild early. So that's just me, you do you. So, and even on the cap it says Mercon LV right there. So that's just me. I'm just letting you guys know, sort of, you know, I don't know what it's going to do to your transmission if you use stuff from the auto parts store that's not Ford, but like I said, you do you. So we're going to start draining here, or filling I should say. Trying to, this funnel's too tall, I can't get the bottle on the picture, but you can hear it. So nice bright red. So, but yeah, this is literally all there is to it. It's very simple, just like every other car out there. Just it's a quirky transmission. I've never run into a transmission that did not have an accessible oil filter or transmission filter before. So a little bit new for me, but at the same time it's not. So that's my 2 cents on it. So we've got 1 quart in. We're going to put 6 more in it, and then I'm going to take a fluid reading. Once I verify that there is fluid on the dipstick, so I'm not dry starting this thing, then we're going to go ahead and back it down off the ramps, get it down on level ground. So I'm going to put about 6.5 quarts in it, and 6 3/4. And once I do that, then I'm going to go ahead and back it down, and then go ahead and get the precise reading, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we've got our 6 quarts right here, which are all empty. And I've still got a little bit in here on my 7th. So, and I just put the dipstick in to verify that it does have fluid. So it's a little bit high, but that's normal because the vehicle's not running. So you always take your transmission fluid level A with the vehicle running, and B once it's up to operating temperature. So now we're going to go ahead and put the car back together as far as the air induction system goes. And actually I'll put you back over here so I have a little bit of room, so I'm not going to bump into you guys again. So, let's go ahead and grab our air cleaner. I'm going to lift this out of the way. And just fish this down in there. And ensure both of our holes are lined up, which they are. And so now, push, there we go, our ducting back into place. Make sure we have that in a locked position, which it is. And go ahead and grab our bolts. Turn them down by hand to ensure they're going good. Which they are. So now we can take our mass airflow sensor connector, and once you connect this up, then you're going to push this red tang back in to lock it in. So we're going to push it till you feel the click. You're not really going to hear it, but you'll feel it, and then just lock it back into place. Now we're good. And so just for spite, I'm going to see if there's a torque spec on these. I know I'm taking this off as soon as I get back, but you know, got to do the right procedures. Otherwise, I'm going to get criticized on YouTube. So, but yep. So let me see if I can find that torque value just for my own peace of mind, and then we'll go ahead and start her up. Well, I couldn't find a torque value, so I just got them snugged, so they're nice and snuggish. So really quick, before we start the engine, we're going to go ahead and verify that nothing is inside the engine compartment and that everything is where it's supposed to be. So the two bolts we took out are back in place. We reconnected the mass airflow sensor. We tightened down our hose clamp here. And more importantly, buried down in there, I don't know if you guys can see it, buried down way in there, our transmission dipstick is also back in place. And we verified that the drain bolt is back in because obviously there's no puddle of ATF underneath the car. So now it comes time to start the car. So what we're going to do here, turn my volume down here so I don't get, there we go. Okay, so the only thing we're going to do in here for right now is we're going to wait for we're not going to sit in here the entire time, but you get the gist. So we're going to let the transmission start warming up, but in the meantime, we're going to start playing with our shifter here. So you want to run the shifter down and back up, and you want to wait a minimum of 10 seconds per gear shift. That way when you're going through, I know this thing doesn't have a gigantic valve body, but nonetheless it still does have one. And you've got all the shift solenoids in here because this is the 6F50 transmission, which is mainly controlled by solenoids. And so I thought I heard something funny. But in an effort to make sure that all the fluid gets to where it goes, we get all the air purged out of it, and we get a very accurate ATF reading. We want to make sure that the fluid is going to those passages and bleeding out and all that good stuff. So right now it's in park. We've obviously been sitting here for more than 10 seconds. So now with my foot on the brake, emergency brake is still on, and the wheel's chalk, so we're not going anywhere. We're going to go ahead and put it in reverse and just let it sit here for about 10 seconds. Go ahead and let your foot off the brake, and we're going to go back outside. We're going to get everything ready to lower it down off the ramps. Okay, so now we have the engine running. It's up to operating temperature, and it's back on level ground. That's the key. Those are the key things here. So now you're going to fish your hand through here, and don't worry because the belt's on the other side, so you're not going to get your fingers chopped off or anything. So just reach down here, find it, unscrew it, pull up, you're going to fish it through. You're going to wipe it. I can't see anything. Slide her back down. And the key here is not to just stick it in. You want to stick it in and also rotate it so it fully seats so you get a really good reading. So now it's fully seated. I'm turning it back out now. Now I'm going to pull it out. We're going to see what we have here. So right now, as you can see, it is a little high. It's just coming into the hot mark, so we're going to get, at least we have fluid in it, so that's the good news. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let the engine keep warming up here and doing its thing to see if the level goes down at all. And like I said, I'm flushing this immediately afterwards. If you were just doing this once, I would just say, hey, put it back down into the hash marks where it belongs. But since I'm flushing this thing right afterwards anyway again, then I'm not going to have a problem. It's the long-term stuff that'll damage your transmission, because having too much fluid is just as dangerous and damaging as having too little fluid. So you want to get right in that happy medium. So I'm going to let this thing just sit here and idle for a while, for about another 10 minutes to get really nice and toasty, and then we're going to take one more reading before we start taking it out and driving. Alright you guys, so now flushed 3 times, gone through and everything else, and I am completely wiped out of ATF. So the best thing to do, and what the owner's manual advises you to do, is as soon as you service this thing, you flush it, you drain it, whatever you're doing, go ahead and drive it for about 20 minutes, which I went into town, dropped off some stuff at Goodwill, came back, went and picked up my uniforms from the dry cleaner, and then so now it's up at operating temperature definitely, and we're going to go ahead and pull the dipstick and make sure that we're still within operating limits. So we are going to go ahead and position you guys right around there. So, and I'm going to pull the dipstick again, and I'll show you guys where we're at. So right here you can see she is just at the very top of the hash marks, just barely touching max, which is perfect because that means it's fully up there at operating temperature, which is great, and I can already feel a really big difference in shift quality. So after getting this thing a total of 4 times now, because like I said before I started, I had already done this once prior as well, and so now with 4 flushes under its belt, I know for a fact that it's got nothing but Ford Mercon LV in there instead of that generic brand that CarMax is putting. So yeah, this thing is shifting beautifully. You can't even feel it shift under mid to low acceleration. Gunned it a couple of times and you still can't feel it, and the downshifting is seamless. You can't feel it. So I would say that is a big W for this one, and this thing's good for another 30,000 miles. So I'm going to go ahead and document on my stuff on how many miles are on this thing currently, and then 30,000 miles later we will go ahead and do the exact same thing. So just not as intense and not as nowhere near the amount of flushing now that I know I have the proper fluid in here. So it's amazing what the right fluid actually does. So, and like I was saying, a little trick too is if you are having transmission shiftability concerns, and you know for a fact that you do have the right fluid in there and you've been keeping up on it, because one of the biggest problems is that people will sometimes try to extend it, the service, like try to get, say for instance this car, the owner's manual says if you're doing a lot of city driving, stop and go, which this car does, you're supposed to change it every 30,000 miles. and say you go 60,000, you know, now it's like, eh. So if you wait too long and then you change it and put fresh fluid in there, all that clutch material now comes out and it has nothing to engage the clutches with, and then you start slipping and whatnot. Of course, I'm really, you know, speaking about an older style transmission with a band and all that stuff. So this one's a little bit different, but you get the point. So the moral of the story here is keep on top of your transmission fluid, keep on top of all the fluids in your engine compartment, and change them frequently and often. And so knowing me, I'll probably change this at 25,000 miles just to be on the safe side. And but anyway, like I was saying, I keep getting sidetracked here. So if you are having transmission shiftability concerns and you have been keeping up on the maintenance and you don't suspect any internal damage from the transmission, but yet it's still really harsh engaging, I've already done this once on this car. I don't need to do it again because it's shifting fine. So what you want to do, and I've done this in a couple other videos, is you want to disconnect your negative battery cable, and then you want to prop it up, put a towel or something in between the between the lead and the terminal so it doesn't contact, and then you're going to take this, and you have a bunch of different little points here that you can use. And so you're going to take a where is it? I know I have one out here. You're going to take a little wire like this. You can get these at Harbor Freight in a bundle for like $5, and you're going to connect. I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to blow up the car. But you're going to connect your connected positive with your disconnected negative, and what that's going to do is it's going to dissipate all the energy stored in the PCM. So it's going to completely erase the throttle body, the mass airflow sensor, the transmission shift points. It's going to erase all that and just divert back to factory settings. And so at that point, you want to let it sit for you know, you can go up to 30 minutes if you want, just to let it sit there and drain the capacitors. The only downside is it's going to delete all the memory on the inside as well. So your navigation, your all your preferences that you've set in the radio, all that stuff is going to kill all of it. And so it's just going to knock it's basically dumbing the car back down to where it was built, you know. So as soon as you do that, you want to let it just sit here and idle for about 10 to 15 minutes. But the important thing is you want to turn the vehicle on, but you don't want to start it, and you want to let it sit there for about 10 seconds so that your throttle body can get a relearn of where absolute zero is. That's the crucial part. And go ahead and start it up. Let it sit here and run for 10 to 15 minutes. Just let it get used to, hey, this is how much air I use, this is how much fuel I need, all that stuff. And then you're going to take the car out on the road, and you're going to notice initially that it starts to surge a little bit. It's shifting all kinds of funky. But you just keep with it, keep driving, nice and slow. Drive like a grandma, because it is a Lincoln, but this applies to any car nowadays. But so, yeah, just drive nice and easy. Don't have a heavy foot, and just do that. And once the transmission reaches operating temperature, that's when it's going to start picking up the micro shift points of what is nice and smooth and seamless. And after that, the transmission is just going to keep learning and learning and learning and learning about the way you drive. These new cars are extremely sophisticated in the fact that it can anticipate the way that you're going to be driving. So if you're the only person driving it, obviously if there's two different people driving it, it's a little bit different. But nonetheless, it's always learning. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents on that. That really helps. It helps with a lot of different things, not just transmission. I used it recently when I cleaned my idle air control valve in my truck, and it worked wonders. It knocked it back down to factory because it was acting all screwy after I cleaned it. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents on that. And then you know what? Just because I want to show you guys something cool here. So this is the inside of an engine. This engine particularly while it's running. So let's see if I can. There you go. So you can see those little oil squirters in there going to town doing their thing. But she is absolutely spotless on the inside. Now I've got a death grip on this flashlight. But yep. So I just wanted to show that to you guys because I thought that was pretty cool, seeing the little oil squirters and whatnot going in there. But alright guys, so that's servicing your transmission in this Lincoln. It's a lot easier than some other cars that I've worked on. A little bit more complicated than other cars I've worked on, but for the most part you can sit here and do this in your garage, no problem, as long as you have a way to get it up off the ground and you have patience. So one of the other quick little things before I cut this off is, instead of having to sit here when you're finally getting your fluid adjustment levels just right, my advice is to put in less than what the vehicle recommends when you're still on the ramps. Put everything back together, get this thing back on level ground, start it up, let it run for a while, go ahead and pull your transmission dipstick out, see where you're at, and then get yourself a clear piece of PVC tubing like this. And I jammed a funnel in here, and I put the tube on the inside of there, and so then I can then really start to add just a little bit at a time until I get that perfect amount that I want. So that way you're not sitting here having to shut it off, take that apart, put it back together. You know, it's a time saver. So that's how I really got down and pinpointed exactly how much fluid that I wanted and needed inside this transmission. So yep, I'm gonna quit rambling, and I will pick it up at the next video, and I will see you guys later. Take care. Thanks for watching.